And welcome back to part 23 of Final Fantasy 15, where today we're tackling the dreaded Costalmark Tower. Very weird building, Prompto. As I said at the end of the last part, it's called a tower, but as you can tell, it's not a very high tower. It's because it's more of a reverse tower, because it keeps on going towards the core of the planet. It keeps on going downward into the ground. You can only access this dungeon during the night as well. That's the other thing worth mentioning. If you try and come here during the day, these steps that we're approaching will all be raised, so you can't go through the tunnel at the bottom, whilst when it's night they all lower down into steps like this, so you can go all the way through. The level recommendation for this dungeon is level 55, and we're tackling it at like level 30 something, like late 30s I think. So yeah, this is going to be a very dangerous experience, and to give it away now, I spend the major majority of level 37 it says there. I spend the major majority of this as Gladiolus, and I recommend you do the same. When the game first came out and you could only play as Noctis, this dungeon was very much yeah, you obey what level it says you should be before you go in here. But now, because of alternative options, your safest bet is almost always to swap to Gladio. I do use all three of the extra characters at some point during the dungeon. So I use Gladio for almost every fight. I use Ignis for one fight to show you how not that helpful he is, unfortunately. Because it seems to be a bit of a trend for Iggy right now. He's not the most useful. And I'll use Prompto for the boss, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We've still got another 40 fucking minutes. Also, technically this video should be like 55 minutes, but there's a section a little later on that I speed up because we're doing the same thing a second time. The second half of the dungeon requires you to do the same thing multiple times in a row. Also, the slimes here resist drain ice, so yeah, be wary. The bombs here are crowned. Keep that in mind. A crowned bomb, if it detonates, will just explode into a bunch of smaller bombs. And Prompto's dead. And so you always have to. So if it's a crowned bomb, you always want to make them your first priority, because the explosion usually kills anyway. But it's also the matter of the fact that you'll have many more problems to deal with if left alive. At this point I realise that it's really not working with Iggy, so I swap to Gladiolus and get some move on. Also, yes, there are a lot of Rodons, or like the higher versions of Rodons in the area, and also be prepared to burn through most, if not all, of your items during this dungeon. You're going to see as we go through exactly why this dungeon is something I recommend going through post-game, because it's just not fun. And the fact that this dungeon drags so much and it's so not fun, I even had to write a list of subjects to talk about during this video so we don't completely burn out. Like, because otherwise it's going to get quite boring and me repeating just how much this dungeon sucks. Oh, and Gladio's dead. Like, he's just straight up dead. End of. And that's the other thing, when we reach the end of this dungeon, we're going to have borderline no items whatsoever. Is he dead yet? Is he dead yet? Is he dead yet? There we go. I waited a Tempest, but it was worth it. And from that point onwards, I realised, okay, don't use Ignis. You also get a Radiant Lance over here. Worth mentioning, though, some of the weaponry loot you get in this dungeon is bloody brilliant. If you can tank it through and get through here, some of the loot here is bloody great. You will really enjoy how powerful and how effective some of the equipment you get in here is. And this is also the last part you're going to be seeing us use Sarah's short sword, because we're going to get a better sword through this dungeon. Throughout this dungeon as well, you're going to see me take, like for the first half, you're going to see me the quickest path I know. I don't know if it's the quickest path, it's just the quickest path I know. But I'll also be getting every main collectible I know of on the way. There's a chance I missed something, but that's what I'm saying, I've got everything I know of. Anything I missed isn't as vital or as important unless you're using them as equipment. But anyway, once you're done, you need to progress across this bridge, and there'll be an optional room in front of you, or you can go down the stairs. The optional room will give us a new sword if we can do it, I believe. I believe it's now. Actually, I'm looking at the mini-map. I might be a little later on. No, this is the spiral staircase. Forget about that. Later on, there's a point where we do the same thing, and there's a room that goes off one way and stairs that go off the other. And the room gives you a sword. The stairs just take you on. But anyway, I might as well start going through these topics. These guys aren't too bad. The only thing that's annoying about fighting on the spiral stairs is that if you go too low on them, it will assume you're out of the fight, which makes it awkward when Gladio is your best bet, because like I said, when you're out of combat, you're only playing as Noctis. You can't play as anyone else outside of combat, with the exception being their personal episodes. And so if you go far down enough the stairs, you'll lose control of Gladio and you'll go back to Noctis, which is annoying because a lot of the enemies, as you can see on the mini-map, travel down the stairs. So you're going to see us get down and then the fight just ends. And then the fight start up again because Noctis spawns higher up. And then when we go back down, the fight ends again. See? It's just really annoying. But anyway, onto my topic list. I've got a lot of things written down. And not a lot of them are to do with Final Fantasy 15, if I'm honest. A lot of them are to do with news and gaming culture as of October 2018, really. Like, what's going on? Like, we've got Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out at the end of the month, which I'm cautiously looking forward to. And the reason why I say cautious is because I am excited for it. I'm very much excited for that story mode. But some of the things that they've been like telling us about and explaining to us about the single player feels like it's drawing on the line of realism versus fun too much. Like having to look after your horse, get the right horse, feed yourself, and keep yourself healthy and keep yourself clean and all that rubbish. It's just, I sit there and go, is that going to be fun to do though? Because I don't think it is. Like, it might be completely wrong. All the reviewers are saying it is actually really fun and it's not intrusive. But that was the only thing that bugged me back with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, that you had to actually feed him. otherwise you like, it'd affect you slightly. And now they've got it so you'll get blurry if you don't sleep, or you'll lose your ability to focus if you don't eat and things like that. It's a bunch of stuff that seems, hopefully it won't be too bothersome, but it just seems like it's a lot of miscellaneous work I won't enjoy. But we'll see. Like, I've got the game pre-ordered and pre-purchased, so it's just waiting for it to arrive on October 26th. Additionally, the multiplayer I've got huge concerns from, because they've made it very clear that they are planning to set up a very similar process to what they did with Grand Theft Auto Online. And now we don't know about the microtransactions, but unfortunately it's very much a given at this point. It feels very much like it's gonna be there, not if it's gonna be there. Especially because they seem to have a focus on doing the whole free updates to keep it alive scheme instead of doing things for the single player. Which is probably the biggest shame of Rockstar. Like, we don't get single player DLCs anymore. The last time we got some real single player DLCs was LA Noire. Yeah. Yeah, take that in for a second. LA Noire was the last time we got DLC, like story mode DLC for a Rockstar game. Because before that it was things like Undead Nightmare for Red Dead Redemption 1, which even then, Red Dead Redemption 1 got it spot on, I felt, because they did multiplayer ones and single player DLCs. Like, they did the best of both. Or those two massive expansions for GTA 4, they had them fine. But 5, we knew they were in the works briefly, but when the microtransactions was earning them like a shit ton of money, they just decided conveniently that they didn't need to do a single player anymore. Which greatly concerns me that it will become something in Red Dead as well. Because I actually really liked Red Dead 1. It was one of the better games of last generation. But only time will tell. I just hope the single player is good above all else. Like, if the multiplayer has some shortcomings or just reuses the GTA 5 formula with its online, I don't have to play it. I probably won't play it that much. Like, I'll play it a bit to experience it, but I can't imagine myself messing with it too much because I'm kind of bored of that formula. I was sick to death of it in GTA 5, but I also know at GTA 5 it's because the game's been out 5 years. And so it's had more than enough time to run it out. Oh, so, but there's the Durandal, the sword that I was saying is in an optional room off to the side. But that, which is a probably brilliant weapon. Look at that stat, look at that attack damage, look at what it boosts. I also believe it's elemental, I think, but I might be wrong with that. I might be completely wrong with that. It's just there's some enemies that I hit with that it seems to do more damage and some seems to do less, and they're not weak to to normal sword, so who knows. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my point with Red Dead 2. What else is on the list? Kingdom Hearts 3 in January. Alright. The Kingdom Hearts franchise. If you've been on this channel for a while, I am a fan of Kingdom Hearts, and I do mention it every so often, but I don't mention it as much as some other people who are big Kingdom Hearts fans. I've played and beaten 1 Chain of Memories 2, and I've seen Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop, but I haven't finished either of them, even though I have the collection, so I can just play through them if I choose to. But I am super stoked for 3 in January, because it's the end of a saga, and almost like an end of the chapter of my childhood. I'll say this when I eventually get to DMC 5, because that's in the list as well. Like Kingdom Hearts was something I grew up with, and so it very much felt like a franchise that waited until I was an adult, or close enough to, because I'm 19 now, before releasing the final chapter of its saga, before releasing the final episode, sort of thing. And something about that kind of makes it a little emotional to me. Like, I don't know if that's just me or whether I'm just being melodramatic or what, but it does, because it's something that's been a part of my life for as long as I remember, something that's been a core part of my childhood, officially coming to an end in January. Like, that's like, okay, that's like a guarantee, okay, that's a piece of your childhood that's over for me, sort of moment. And I'm not sure I'm ready to take that in. I think I'm going to cry like a bitch when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3. We'll find out when it comes out, because it's not until January, and it's a miracle we're getting it at all when you look at some of the development history of it and how long it's been in development. Christ, we've been waiting an eternity. But yeah, it's just, it looks so fucking good as well. Like, they feel like they've got the right graphical style down to keep it shell shaded yet cool. They've got a nice feel of it. All the new worlds look cool, they look fun. Even the Frozen world, as much as I didn't enjoy the film that much, even the Frozen world looks like they've expanded upon the ideas and built upon it and made something fun with it. Like, it's just, it all looks like it's flowing together really nicely, and we're gonna have a pretty badass game come January to really wrap up the whole Kingdom Hearts saga with a bang. And that's all I can really say on it, really. Like, the gummy ship sections on it, from the small bits we've seen on the trailer, just look like they've expanded on the idea they did with 2, which I'm happy with, because I like the roller coaster that was 2's gummy ship missions. Because I didn't really like the Star Fox styled gummy ship missions of the first game. I felt like they were kind of lackluster, but then I say that knowing full well that I'm not a big Star Fox fan either, so that's probably why I didn't have much of an opinion on it as well. And it was back before they didn't really know what they were doing with Kingdom Hearts. It was the first game, so I think we can let it off a little bit. This is before they did fucking card games with it, or made the story really depressing. But every time it's one of the ninja guys, one of the Rodons, these guys have one of the more advanced ones, so they don't have those don't have the name Ronin on them. But you're gonna see me go proper wild to make sure they die at all means necessary when we fight them. But that's all I have really to say on KH3. It looks badass, the gummy ship missions look great, all the worlds we've seen look really fun, and a lot more open and expansive than they used to be. And bring on January. What's next? Shin Megami Tensei 5. I'm not really sure why I put this on the list, because there's not that much I can really say on it, but whatever. It was announced when the Switch was first announced nearly 2 years ago now. So it was announced quite a while ago, and I'm quite a Shin Megami Tensei fan. I've really been pulled into its world after playing Nocturne 4 and 4 Apocalypse, and I'm nearly finished Strange Journey Redux now. I really got pulled into its world, but it's like, we haven't heard much about SMT5. Like, when it was first announced with Switch, it was just new SMT title. It wasn't confirmed to be SMT5 yet, it was just a new SMT is on its way, look forward to it sort of thing. And then it was about 6 months later where they did a big thing for the 25th anniversary, where they did a music performance and showed off. At the end of it, they showed off a new trailer that gave us more of an idea of what's going on in the world, and they actually revealed then it was called Shin Megami Tensei 5. After that, we got an English dub of the trailer to confirm with us that it is getting an English dub, and it's getting an English release, and that's it. We've been left in the dark nearly 2 years since. Also, I completely skipped that fight because it's really not worth fighting. You can just run down it and get the loot at the bottom. There's so many enemies down there, it's not worth the hassle. Just run through it, which is what you saw me do. But I'm really hopeful for SMT5 because we know that a lot of the team from Nocturne and a lot of the team from 4 are joining forces to sort of make it happen, which really gives me hope because 3 and 4 were fucking great. I really enjoyed Nocturne. Nocturne was my favourite of the bunch, and it was the last of the main 3 I played, because my first one I played was actually SMT4, and it's the one that I had something like 206 game overs in by the end, and I played it on normal because SMT is from JRPG pros and no one else. They take that in pride, and I was not prepared. But I got through it. I ended up doing the game twice because I got the lore ending on my first playthrough, which really angered me because I'm a Chaos player. I am a Chaos player in SMT, and essentially whether you go lore or Chaos is entirely down on whether you believe lore is more important than morals or whether you believe moral is more important than lore. I value morals more important than lore, and so I go Chaos. And the reason why I end up with the lore ending is because I wanted to get the neutral ending, since in SMT4 the neutral ending is the canon true ending. So I needed to get it, and I realised I was very far gone in Chaos. So near the end of the game I deliberately made a bunch of lawful decisions to try and balance it out, but since the game has no way of telling you what path you're on until it's too late, I ended up in lawful and was very angry that I ended up in the polar opposite of what I believed in as an ending. So I had to do the whole game again, this time following a walkthrough that gives a number for what every decision adds to lore and chaos, just so I could make sure I ended up on neutral, just to realise that the final decision is an absolute dick about how they handle it, and the biggest criticism I have of the game. No, because like lore and chaos, to get neutral you have to be between +8 and -8. Which, so like plus, like if you're in a plus number you're lawful, if you're in a minus you're in chaos, that sort of thing. The final decision is +10 or -10. There is no neutral decision on the final choice. So if you were being really good neutral and get it on 0, you're fucked out of getting the neutral ending, which I think is just bad design. If you're a neutral player you should be able to get neutral. To force you into one or the other, like, that's just dumb. So I had to do the game again following it, and I ended up on like, I think it was -4, so I could go, no, it was +5 even, because I've got the list right in front of me, I just got it up. It was the last thing I was on was +5, so then I could go for the chaos option at the end and put me into -5, which is still in the neutral boundary. Then I played Apocalypse, which Apocalypse, getting the true ending on that is a lot easier because although there is a moral code decision for it, at the end of the game when it comes to it, it lets you decide. It's like, look, will you go for this ending or will you go for that? Just choose. There's no cut or dry about it. Just get what ending you want. And since that one's the latest on the timeline, there's no confirmed canon ending of the 2 main final endings. Because there's 2 endings depending on whether you side with Lucifer or Merkaba, which you shouldn't side with either because that's dumb. This isn't Nocturne, we'll get to that in a minute. But in 4 Apocalypse, if you side with neither of them, later on you get a choice to whether agree or disagree with Dagda. And if you agree with Dagda, you murder all your friends, and then once you take on the final boss Yivi and take him down, you get power of the world, you get power of all life and the power of the domain. But if you disagree with Dagda, you take him down with your friends and then save the world after destroying Yivi, so you still go through the same dungeon path. Also, we're doing this bit here because you have to kill all the enemies before it will let you go into the second half of the dungeon, which is really annoying because there is an enemy up here who's out of the fighting zone again, because the spiral staircases are really awkward with their enemy zones. But I'm surprised they never like edited this to fix it. But they never just widened it and increased the height of it or something to make it easier for you. But you have to kill them all to really advance into the second section. Which, now I'll cut that SMT talk for a bit as we talk about what the second section is. When you're in the second section, there's this giant open space around you with 4 blocks in each corner. One of the blocks, and only one of them, will allow you to be interacted with. When you interact with it, it will take you down into a series of maze-like tunnels where you move blocks to find ways forward. It will always give you a choice of like 1, 2, sometimes even 3 blocks to push, and when you push one, you lose the ability to push any other. And you keep on going, pushing blocks, and after about your 10th or 11th block push, it will drop you down into the bottom area. There's 2 bottom areas it can drop you into. The very first section of these you do will always drop you into the bad one. The bad one is an open space that has a shit ton of enemies into it, but also has the access point into the hardest vault in the game. This is how it works by the looks of it now. So you have to do it once. After that, though, it becomes luck based. I'm not kidding. You have to do the whole process again of the second phase on a second block, and there is a chance that the blocks you move will move other blocks in the right direction. There's a chance that those exact same blocks will also not move them and put you down the bad direction anyway. The chance increases if you fail it a second time, and chances increase to a guarantee if you fail it a third time. So no matter what, you will do it in 4 cycles, but each cycle takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Which is why this dungeon really starts to drag. This second section is the most boring, dullest thing in the dungeon, and is one of the biggest reasons why I don't like it. Because it's luck based. Like the first one you have to fail. No matter what you press on this one, we will end up in the wrong area and fail. On the second one, I get stupidly lucky, and I get that small chance. I get it, and I end up in the right area on the second run, which, if you're following along, you might not get, even if you followed the exact path, because it is chance based. On my blind playthrough, I got it on my 3rd run, thankfully, because I don't think I would have been prepared to do it 4. But every time you fail it, the enemies at the bottom get worse, because you're going to see that there's a full-on red giant, which is an upgraded version of the Iron Giant that's level like mid to level 40s, I think, and will kick your ass at this level. Will absolutely demolish you. And if you weren't playing the main game, the main strategy that everyone would tell you was there's a bit in the corner you can hide in, whilst it will still count it as active in the fight, but none of the enemies can get you. You go there, you stay there until the game gives you a summon, because it's always randomly decided when the game's going to let you summon Ramu or Titan if you're in certain areas. And that's essentially the strategy. You sat in the corner and waited it out until it gave you it, making it extremely boring as well, because sometimes you'd be waiting a long ass time for the summon to be awarded to you. As in the second time round, it makes it 2 Iron Giants, and the third time round it's 2 Red Giants, and on the third time round it spawns 2 Red Giants and a Naga, a level 70 Naga that will almost definitely demolish you no matter what level you're on. As in, you can't fail it a 4th time, but if you reset the dungeon, like exit and go back into it, it will just reset it, so there is no 4th option, it will just reset itself round. So, but the 4th time round is a guarantee. So if you fail it 3 times and you're like really angry at the dungeon, which you should be because it's bullshitly designed, don't worry, the 4th time you go through it, the 4th piece you go on will take you to the right path. Also, this is the wrong path here that we're on. This is the first time we do it, and it's just, and I say it 10 minutes. The first one is a lot shorter. Like the first path you say is a lot shorter, but this is the wrong room, and essentially what it is. That corner space there that I'm showing off, that corner space that I just quickly ran over to, this was the strategy. You sat in that corner because there's a little tunnel that curves around it but keeps you in the fight. You sat in there, and that was your entire experience of this area. Because this guy's a prick. And that's essentially the idea of it. The second time we go through it is the much longer one, but to save the hassle, that one I speed up, and it's what stops the video from being 56 minutes, I think it was in the end, and why it's 43 minutes instead. Because yeah, it was that bad, it is that long when not sped up. But anyway, back to my talk. I had my annoyance with 4. And I like the idea of having lore and chaos be involved in the ending, because it's the same with every SMT, including the spin-off Strange Journey. But I just felt like they did it kind of poorly by making it so vague and not having any real statistic or numbers or anything really to work with. Because there was one guy you were talking to in the bar who would give you an idea what path you're on, but that was it, an idea. He'd say, oh, people don't know what to think of you, or people think you're too hectic, or people think you're too much of a goody two-shoe, that sort of thing, depending on what path you was on, and that was about it. whilst Apocalypse did away with it by making it your choice at the end. The only thing is that if you were always agreeing with Dagda, and then when it came to the important decision you disagreed, the game would punish you for saying you're going against everything you believed in up until that point. Or if you always agreed with your friends, and then at the end suddenly agree with Dagda, it will punish you for saying, hang on, you're going against what you've been doing all game. But it wouldn't stop you from accessing that ending anyway. You just had to suffer the consequences.
I'm just amazed we actually made it.
But that's the first run. Anyway, like, there's a lift in the middle that will take you back up to the top when you're doing it. But that gap there, you see it? This gap over here, I think I actually go and show it. This is how you get access to the final vault. So if you're doing all the vault dungeons, you have to do a large chunk of Costalmark again. You can't just race to it. You have to do Costalmark again because it's all the way over here. That one's level 99 and disables the use of items when you're in it. So it really fucking sucks. But then afterwards, I played Nocturne, but I ended up playing it a little bit, putting it down, and then about 4 or 5 months later coming back and playing it because I'd burnt out of SMT. I went straight from playing 2 playthroughs of 4th, straight to Apocalypse, then straight from Apocalypse to Nocturne. I was burnt out of SMT because they're brutally hard games. So I gave it a few months, came back to it, and Nocturne, easily the best one in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, 4 and Apocalypse are both really good, but 3 is just so on a whole different level. It's hard to get into, but it's so damn good. And I got the true demon ending in the end, which is a little hard to get to because there's a bunch of optional bosses that steadily become available throughout the game, and you have to kill all of them to get their candelabras, or however you pronounce it, candelabrums. And once you've got them all, you can access this maze-like humongous ass dungeon called the Amala Labyrinth, I think it was called. And you had to complete the whole dungeon, which in and of itself was a fucking mission. Oh, this is where I speed it up to 4 times the speed just to get a move on. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the best. Like, there were some parts of it that really made me go ugh. Like Beelzebub's area, most of the floors not only poisoned, but every time the poison hits you, it halves your health. It's like gravity level poison. It's just like ugh. Or trying to work out how to get to the final floor. You had to like backtrack. Like after killing Beelzebub, you had to backtrack to the 2nd floor to get a hint from some guy on the 2nd floor that you couldn't get to because of the poison floor. Because once you kill Beelzebub, all the poison in the entire dungeon vanishes. Talk to him, to which he gives you a hint that he passed on a key to a guy in a bar. So you have to leave the dungeon, go to Shibuya, find a bar, talk to everyone there to find out that he sold it to some random merchant. So then you have to go to the black market merchant, which is like this one special merchant you meet about halfway through the game. You have to go find him, talk to him, and then he gives you the key. You go to the 3rd floor in the alternate dungeon where there was a locked door. You open said locked door, go through that path where it will take you down to the 5th floor, there's a switch there. You pull the switch, so it will open the proper entrance to the 5th floor. You backtrack round, go through the 4th floor into the 5th floor properly. Like, it was such a fucking hassle to get into it, just to get to Metatron, just to get Pierce, and just to get the true demon path. But I enjoyed doing it, and if it ever gets a re-release on PS4 and I, for whatever reason, torment myself to play it again, because you do have to be a little sadistic to put yourself through that, I feel, especially optionally twice. I did it once because I wanted to do the full experience, but I don't think I'd ever do it again. But once you've done all that, then you get access to the true ending. And don't get me wrong, the fiends, or their optional bosses you have to fight throughout the journey of the game, were great fun. And there were actual genuine locks on each floor that you had to have enough candelabra to get access on. So you could do as much of the dungeon as you could when you could. Like when you first unlock it, do the whole 1st floor. Once you kill, because you have to kill Matador to unlock it, which is Matador is a scripted fight. You have to fight him, which is such a difficulty jump because he's in the same vein of all the other fiends, and so it's a difficulty spike and an extra boss added to the Maniacs edition of Nocturne, because the Maniacs edition was the only version that made it to the West, so you have to have the extra bosses, which is pretty sweet at least. You have to kill Matador, which is a pain in the ass if you're not ready, but then to get access to the 2nd floor it's Daisojo and Hellbiker, and then after that it's like you get access to the second floor, and then once you've done the second floor to get access to the rest, I believe you have to start working through the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Like Red Rider, White Rider, Black Rider. No horsemen of the apocalypse, just the 4 horsemen, like the 4 horsemen of death sort of thing. Once you've done all the riders, you should have access to the 3rd and 4th floor, because I think it's 2 and no, it's 3. You kill 3 of them to get access to the 3rd, and then once you kill the 4th one, you start working towards the 4th. On the 3rd one, you have good old Dante to fight, which is pretty damn fun. And then you get access to the 4th, I think, after another one, which I think is Mother Harlot, you fight afterwards. And to get access to the 5th... No, to get access to the 4th floor, you have to also then kill Trumpeter, because to get access to the 5th floor, you have to beat the 4th floor. And then you get given the last one by Dante through plot. Yeah. And then obviously you get off access to True Demon Ending, which is pretty satisfying. Like you kick Lucifer's ass at the end, and then you get to decide, okay, we're moving on, and we're going to storm the heavens and take over heaven to kill any kind of justice and balance that God's thrown us. Which is a cool plot idea. You don't see it, but it's implied so heavily that you're like, yes, let's fucking do it. As the credits roll and you feel like a champion. But I'll end that discussion there and wrap up that point, because that's pretty much all I had to say about SMT, and I dragged out a lot more. But we're at the end! Hey! And you're rewarded some Mega Phoenix for getting through the right path. And you see me jump like a moron because I was really happy that I got lucky enough to get it as early as I could. And now we proceed onwards with the boss, as we struggle to get the X button to, there we go, to get it to work. But when you go down it, you're going to see it opens up into what looks like a giant factory. Look at it, it looks quite far out as well. Like it really expands onwards, all these factories and machines. Like, I want to know the lore of this place. Who built it? Why did they build it? What was its purpose, like at the time? What was the point of Costalmark Tower? And more importantly, how did the Jabberwock get down here? Like, how did he get down here? Anyway, the Jabberwock is level 58 with 201,200 HP, a strength stat of 36,680, vitality of 294, spirit of 220. It has a 20% weakness to polearms, machinery and ice, with a 50% resistance to fire and complete immunity to anything related to instant kills. He's also resistant to stop, so you won't be able to stop him if ever, but he's neutral to poison, so you can poison him. He's also very effective at petrifying. Petrifying will turn you to stone, make you invincible, but once your stone breaks out, then you take the damage. And Ignis is already dead. At the start of this fight, I try and swap to Gladio, thinking that it's going to be another Gladio fight. No, at the end I resort to a smarter option, which is Prompto and keeping a distance, because his strength stat is way too high. You can, however, break a part of his head to reduce his defense by 15%, reduce a part of his body to reduce it by 8, reduce a part of his tail to cut it by 10, and his legs but to also drop it by 10. So you can drop his defense quite considerably if you start breaking body parts. Also, he petrified all of us. And you can see that it says we're invulnerable, and then once the petrify ends, we just get whacked out of it. Like that. The main strategy, really, if you're playing as Noctis, is just time management. Don't go full aggressive. Pay attention to what he's going to do. If he goes to raw, do whatever you can to get out of there. Take off your locks, pick a direction and warp. But if you have access to the whole team, as in you're playing it nowadays, you should be playing Prompto really to keep your distance. Or if you're good with Gladiolus, then play Gladiolus, but you might struggle to parry some of his attacks because the timing's a little precise on some of it. But it's just the whole fight really. It's going to be me keeping my distance and shooting the shit out of them. So I'm going to go on to the last thing I have written down on my points and subject matters to make. Devil May Cry. Because of course I talk about Devil May Cry. I've made it abundantly clear that it's like one of my favourite franchises of all time. And I was stupendously stoked to find out that after 10 years of waiting patiently, we're finally getting Devil May Cry 5. And it looks so fucking good! It's literally every expectation, everything I hoped it would be, is been surpassed drastically. Like before it was originally announced, I just was like, okay, as long as it's like DMC4, but maybe the graphics are cleaned up a little bit, just to 10 years of technology, that's fine. That's all it is. It just needs to be DMC4 again, and I'd be happy with it. So the fact that it's added so much to it, like giving Nero loads of different arms to work with instead of just the one, giving Dante the ability to have as many weapons on as you see fit, whilst bringing back old weapons like Cerberus, or giving him a fucking hat that shoots meteors. He's so badass. And like yeah, I've seen people try their hardest to make a controversy out of the microtransactions, which is fucking dumb, because if you played DMC4 you already know exactly what the microtransactions are going to be and how inconsequential and unnecessary they are. Like, no one's going to need them, no one's going to feel like they need them, no one's going to feel like they're not getting enough red orbs. Like, if you've seen any gameplay demo of it, like, shit players are getting like 25,000 red orbs from one mission, for goodness sake. It's not oh no, they're making us they're trying to encourage us to buy red orbs. They're making it focused on microtransactions. They're not at all. The game's going to be brilliant, and if you're going to boycott it over a reason like that, that's really fucking stupid. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like microtransactions in games, period, but to make out that this is like the worst thing ever when loot boxes is still such a prominent threat on the industry, and it's still something that game companies are profusely telling us is not gambling and it's a-okay to give to children. Whilst that's on the matter, I really feel like that's the bigger problem, that's the bigger heat of the matter. That's what people should be focusing on, making controversy and sparking up and dealing with, not fucking microtransactions that don't affect the game at all. It just feels very pointless, because the game looks so fucking good. And the new character V, I'm excited to see how he plays that, because like, we've heard little tidbits and snippets from Matt and Hideaki Tsuno, but nothing proper. We probably won't know until the next real trailer, which could either be the XO18, since Xbox are doing their own version of the PlayStation Experience, or the Game Awards in December. I'm personally leaning a little bit towards the latter. Like, I know Xbox or Microsoft even have partial advertising rights over DMC, so maybe XO18 in November, but I've got a feeling that they're going to do something. They're going to do like a proper V reveal at the Game Awards. Like, the XO18 might just be a second Dante trailer, sort of how Nero got a second trailer, and then at the end of it we saw like 5 seconds of gameplay from Dante. They might do the same here, but we get another trailer showing off more of Dante, then at the end we see a bit of V gameplay, but it's only a little bit to tease out till the Game Awards, where we get a proper V trailer. Then after that it will just be the wrap-up advertising on the approach to its release on March 8th. And don't expect a let's play of it the moment it comes out. Like, I've made it very clear many times in the past, but I don't like doing things blind ever, really. If I do a let's play of Devil May Cry 5, which you know it's going to happen, because I absolutely adore the franchise, so I'm going to play it regardless of what I like and may not like about it. But it's not going to happen like as soon as the game comes out. It'll be a while after, probably after all the hype of it's died down and whatever, and it's just a comfortable time for me to just go through it and have a bit of fun with it. Sort of thing. Oh, especially when I'm more experienced with it as well, so I'd probably want to do it on a hard enough difficulty to make the most of it, and not just suck ass because I've only done like one playthrough before it, that sort of thing. And I'm just super stoked for it. There's no other way of putting it. The main theme, Devil Trigger, like, it's so built for crazy parties, it's not even funny. It's such a good song that feels so much like a rave, like this, that the developers were celebrating and having a rave for being able to make the game. That's what it feels like, and I adore it for that. I adore everything about it. Yes, Subhuman is not a good song. The vocals, like Suicide Silence's vocals, are goddamn awful. The lead singer having controversies for engaging in underaged young ladies, I think is the most polite way of describing the piece of shit. Oh no, seriously, like, that drives me up the wall. That's fucking infuriating when I hear stories like that, because it's like, what scum of the earth do you have to be to think that's acceptable? But whatever. But Capcom have cut off that, and they know they've cut off advertising, but they've also made it kind of clear they don't really have any time left in development, process to really make a new song, which is why I'm hoping that they will just reach out for people like Little V or Shooty HG or something like that, people who have probably already got their own version of Subhuman ready and raring to go, that can just pass them along and say, there you go. Especially Little V's got his on YouTube, and although it kind of highlights how terrible the lyrics are for Subhuman, because the lyrics really aren't that good either, it does make the song sound a lot better than what we're actually getting. But then I've also heard the argument that maybe it just wasn't mixed that well, which is always a chance because the mixing wasn't that great anyway. But I don't know. And I'm curious to see what V's theme is, because if the leaks and rumours are true, it's orchestral rock, which could be pretty cool. It could be a really fun track if it's a good orchestral rock. But they don't get Suicide Silence to do that shit as well. But seriously, that's such a bizarre decision. Like, if you're doing a grand hurrah, they got everyone else on board but Shooty HG. Like, what was the decision there? Why was that like that? Anyway, the Jabberwock's dead. And so I'll wrap this up. I'm super stoked for DMC5. Everything but Subhuman is absolutely brilliant and I adore it. And as soon as it comes out March 8th, you probably won't see anything on this YouTube channel for like a month, because I'll be nothing but playing it. And that's our 10th. And I think that's the tool we just got, the weapon of the tool, which is another, well, it looks like a great sword. It's not quite, it's a fucking chainsaw. I'm being serious. The spikes on the end of it spin like a chainsaw.
That's it.
And the Jabberwock Sterin, even not steak, gives us access to the Crown City Roast, which is brilliant because it boosts your HP and attack to ridiculous levels. But that's it. That's the end of Costalmark Tower. That's the end of this shithole. You stand on this, it will teleport you to the entrance. There are several of those throughout the dungeon, like just placed around. If you followed along or anything like that, I should have mentioned it earlier. Don't go anywhere near them. The last thing you want is to get really far in the dungeon, step on it, and get kicked out. Because it is a proper kick in the nuts if you do that. But that's it. That's the worst dungeon in the game done. And I say that knowing full well of one particular puzzle-based dungeon in the post-game that infuriates a lot of people and is like 3 hours long. But that doesn't bother me anywhere near as much. Like, it's annoying. Like, some of the puzzles are annoying, yeah, but it's nothing but puzzles. So if you just think about it, take your time and work your way through it, you find a way through. Anyway, I cut to the closest resting spot I could find, which is this, which gives me a caravan that gives me a slight experience boost, whilst celebrate and rejoice that that goddamn dungeon is finished. So next time on Final Fantasy 15, we've got one last part to wrap up before we advance the plot. There's an Imperial fort to the northeast of us, nearest to Hammerhead and nearest to the first 2 royal tombs we got. Over there, once we deal that, and because we have a rematch with Loki and the general that we found in the second fort that we tried to kidnap, after that rematch, we've got a few small things to do, and then we're done for wrap up for what I want to do. All the other little side quests and things like that are going into post game if I decide to do them, because some of them aren't really worth showing. They're kind of pointless. I want to show off as much of the game as I can, but at the same time I'm like we'll see as we go. But after that, we're on the main plot. So if you're tired of us doing optional stuff, rejoice, we're nearly there. We've got one more part after this and then we're done. But that all being said, I'll see you guys next time. Take care now.
Yo.
Hey.